All right, hello everybody. I'm going to walk you through a lab this week and try to point out some things to get you prepared. So we're going to be starting this lab, which will run through Onychophora all the way to echinoderms, and that will finish off this packet. So in this particular lab, that's going to be page 18, and it's going to be called Lab 6. And station 1 of that, just so you know where you're at, is the Ecdysozoa there. And then the phylum Onychophora after that, then the tardigrades, and then the nematodes. So first of all, same thing as before. You should be familiar at this point with the idea that what we do is there are questions. There are the taxonomy is fair game. So let's make sure we know that, right? So taxonomy is fair game, just like before. Nothing's changed. We're going to ask you questions, and we're going to ask you these questions right here. These are the questions that are in your packet, and the answers to those questions are in the PowerPoint slides for the lab that I'll post along with it. And your job is to go through and make sure you can answer those questions, and then those are the ones we would ask you on a quiz or practicum. Okay, so nothing has changed at that point. You should be used to that by now. Couple things do get a little different here. So one I'll explain first is I call it Tim's rule of 2 or more. And you can call it whatever you want, but when I refer to it, this is what I'll do. So if, let's say you have a question about what habitat does the animal live in? Okay, if the answer to it is something like shallow oceans, right? Then that's one thing. If it says shallow oceans and brackish water, let's say, that's two things. So any kind of habitat or any kind of food or diet, if in the question it says what do these animals eat, what habitat are they in, so forth, if the answer to it on the cards is 2 or less, you should know those two. Now, if it's more than 2, so let's say they say it's found under logs, leaves, tires, plates. I don't know why you'd have plates out there. What else might you, let's just say things outside that might be laying in your yard. Bricks, rocks. If it lists more than 2, it gives you 3 or 7 or 25, then you can lump. And what I mean by that is you can pick which of those. You know, you can just pick 1 or 2, doesn't matter. You should be familiar with them all. So here's where the trick comes in. So let's say it's a practicum and they give you, and I say what habitat is it in? And when you're studying for the practicum, it lists 9 different things. You can use any of the 2 of the 9. Doesn't matter. Okay? Now, if it's multiple choice though, and I give you, and you have to know 9 things, and I give you 2 or 3, you have to know enough at least to recognize them. So you don't have to write the answers down on a multiple choice test, but you would have to know enough of them to be able to recognize them. I may not give you all 9, but I would give you, say, 4. So if you just memorized 2 and you were certain only those 2 were the ones, you might have some issues on a multiple choice test. Just something to think about. But when it comes to writing an answer down, you can use any of the two if it's more than two. Okay, that part's important. Okay. Also, just like before, we have questions and structures for you to know. Then we get down to station 7 here, the nematode worms. And this is important because normally you don't need to know the genus of most of the animals we've done. But you might remember way back on Lab 1, I mentioned, it might have been Lab 2, but an animal that causes, or an organism that causes a particular disease or some kind of environmental problem, those you need to know. So on this list here for the nematodes, you do need to know the word Ascaris, Neactor, Trichinella, Enterobius. Oh, this is a good one right here. Look at this one. Macrocantharynchus, Turbatrex, and Wuchereria, and Dracunculales. Those you need to know the genera of, if that makes sense. Okay, so you don't need to know the species part of the name. So you don't need to know the Lumbricoides. You can if you want, doesn't hurt you, but you do need to know the genus, that first part. Okay, the description, unique characteristics, biogeography, other hosts, mode of infection, those are all in the handout, in the cards. So you should know those. Once again, let's say biogeography is a good example. Once again, Tim's rule of two or more. Okay, if it lists 2 places, it's found in Florida and North Carolina. Then you need to know those 2 places. But if it lists 7 or 9 different countries, you can just give me 2. Okay. Once again, though, you need to know enough if it was multiple choice that you could go, oh yeah, that's probably one of them. But I tend to try to give you a couple of options in there when we do that. Okay. So that's one. That's important. For the arthropods, same thing. You're going to fill out the packet just like you did before. Nothing new there. Once again, in the crustaceans, they give you the different groups. So you'll notice here, we're going to call it a group. A group and a clade are the same thing. So if we have the subphylum Crustacea, below the subphylum, you could have class, or there are different ways you could do it. This taxonomy isn't as defined by the people that write up the taxonomy. They don't agree. So we're just going to call them groups. A group is the same thing as a clade, and a class is a type of group or clade, but class has a specific meaning, and here they're just not quite willing to do that. So if I say what group are they in, I'm looking for those words there. Okay, then we get into more of the arthropoda, the Chilopoda and Diplopoda, where it says examples. We just want a common name for them. So centipede, millipede, that's fine. Okay, probably the most difficult part to understand, at least maybe, is this part here. So you might remember in lecture, I told you there are certain insect orders that you need to know, because when you go out and meet with your friends, they're going to want to know, hey, what's this thing? And instead of saying it's a bug, you got to say it's a hemipteran or it's a coleoptera. So you had to know certain orders, okay, for lecture. For lab, we do it a little bit different. For lab, we're going to do this like the fruit. Okay, remember when we did the fruit? And we always go through this, and I always say that I spend a lot of time explaining what the fruit rules are. But if you didn't understand the fruit rules, it doesn't do you any good to tell you this is like the fruit rules. But what we'll do, if I'm going to ask you a question about order of insects. What I'll do is I'll give you this chart. Okay? And on the chart, you'll have, if I ask you order, you'll have the orders like this, and you'll have the descriptions like this, and then the common names, this will all be gone. I'll take these off so you won't see them. Okay? Those will be gone. And so let's say I have let's pick one we didn't have to memorize. Let's say I have a termite out. Okay? So what would happen is I'd have the insect out. I'd have a picture of it, or I'd have a specimen, or however I'm going to do it. There'd be a termite. And you would look at it and you would go, okay, that's a termite. And then I'd say, what order is it in? And what you would have to do is look on this list and go, termites. Let's see. I think they're this group. And then you can go over here and look at the description and see if that helps you. But the word I'm looking for you to write down is Isoptera, if I asked you order. So again, it's like the fruit. Same thing as the fruit. I'm going to give you a picture of the fruit or the fruit itself. I'm going to ask you, what kind of fruit is it? You can't write down apple. I'm looking for poem. And it doesn't say apple on the sheet because I take it off, but I give you the fruit names and the descriptions. This is the same as that. Okay? And again, it's just for order of insects. So if I ask you phylum or subphylum, you don't get the chart. You only get the chart for orders of insects, and you will get this exact chart, but without the common name, but it will have the order and the description name. And once again, people say, well, I don't need to study it then because it's going to be right there. It's not that you don't need to study it. You just need to study it different. You need to study it and have this as something you're using as you practice studying it. On the quiz, you can't have it out, or on the practicum, you can't have it out because that's cheating. I'm going to give it to you, though, without the common names. Okay? And then I think the rest of the stuff ends up being pretty similar. We give you this key here to help you identify the different orders. I'm not going to use it. A long time ago, we had a project we thought we might do, and so we just left it in here. It's not exactly as the same as the one you've got, but it's pretty close. But you do not need to do anything with these pages here. These are just extra pages to help you if you want. We also get to a very interesting spot in the class where you're going to be held responsible for knowing certain sounds. So in this case, we only have 5: field cricket, honeybee, cicada, grasshopper, and mosquito. A lot of people think this is a joke when we get to it and they laugh. Oh, sounds, how are you going to do that? Well, that's what we're going to do. So we're going to play a sound. You're going to hear a sound, and you have to know those animals. So there are some animals that might be hard to find, to see, but you might be able to hear them. And so a good example of that, cicada. I've heard thousands of cicadas in my life, but I've only seen a few of them. They're hard to find. So there are a lot of animals you can tell just by sound. So what we'll do there is you need to practice. These are on my website. You can go and you can listen to the sounds and practice and make sure you can identify them by sound as you're listening to them. This one is easy because in the first part you see there's only 5. In the next practicum there's quite a few more. I think we get up to maybe 10. In the last practicum on birds and mammals, there's a lot of birds you can do by sound. So there's like 25 or something we do by then, birds and mammals. So it grows. And so it's something you need to practice. You need to be able to listen to it and recognize it. And some people find this very easy. Some people are like, wow, why do we spend any time doing that? That's so easy to do. But some people, and I'm one of them, they struggle with making that sound connection to the insect, so or bird or whatever it is. So for some of you, you might need to practice that, and that's going to help you a great deal. We have, once again, dissections, parts that you need to know, and then we get into the phylum Echinodermata. Those questions are all pretty much right out of the packet, just like before, and that takes you all the way to the sea star dissection, and then that is the end. The packet ends there, and then that is the end of Practicum III's content, and then the following week we'll start a brand new lab packet, and you can put this one away till later or whenever you need it. Okay? All right. Hope that helps you get started. I will talk with you soon.